everybody who is watching this session online from their living room. I know it's a very pleasant experience to attend a conference online from a distance. And just a few words about myself. I embarked on this journey of being an health teacher, professional, many years ago in this very city in Budapest. I'm also very emotional when I talk about it. And then I left, and I've been living in France for the past almost 20 years, between France and Canada. I teach English in professional environment, business English in companies. I teach English at a graduate business school, master's degree students. I teach English to teenagers that ask me to help them to better communicate in English. And 3 years ago, I joined TESOL France, which became my big family who supports me and helps me to do presentations like the one I would like to share with you today on collaborative creative learning, which are little tools, little techniques that help me get through my classes with different type of learners on a daily and on a weekly basis. So it's not just me as a teacher and you as a teacher who embark on a journey, but our learners embark on a journey as well when they sign up to a training course. I mainly teach business English, so this talk is mainly based on their needs and their profile. In France, we have 20 hours of training that we can offer to our learners. It's a very short time. So when they sign up, they feel being in front of this big stop sign. But they would like to go a little bit further. And that's roughly our 20 hours period. I don't know about Hungary. How long is a training session, a professional training session in a language school here? Is anybody from?
14,
Yeah, so it's a short period of time. We can't make miracles. We can push this stop sign a little bit further ahead. But once they left the course, the stop sign will appear again. And what they want is this. They would like to follow their journey on this beautiful long road, which is actually in New Brunswick in Canada. And at the end, you will see where it goes if we get there. Usually my learners do in their vision. And on this road, they want to accomplish a personal success. They want to take personal benefits. They want to acquire transferable skills. And in the end, they want to be a successful communicator in every situation they encounter after the training. Now, how do we do this? We come into our first class, we have some content, some learning content. We want to teach them presentation skills, negotiation skills, how to conduct a meeting. That's the what that we know. And then comes our learner with different things. He has his own learning process. He knows, or he wants to know, how to do these things. Now, what brings these two spheres together in my mind can be creativity. Can be many other things, but can be creativity. In another framework, what we bring are tools. We bring our methods. But the learners, they have their needs. They have their different learning styles that we have to adapt to. Now, how do we match these two together? If we think a little bit, I think we can all agree that a good personal relationship, rapport. I don't like using this word because I speak French. And in French, it has a certain different connotation. I just don't like it, so I keep using personal relationship between our trainee, our learner, and we as a teacher. So if you follow a little bit, and if you, through your PLN, you follow what are the trends and trendy topics in health nowadays, then you probably heard about the expression of the dark matter of teaching. It's a wording which means this gap between the lesson and the lesson plan, between the moment we come into the classroom and what actually happens, and nobody knows what's in this blurry little space. What happens between the course book and what happens between the content generated or asked by the learner. Now, what I think happens in this moment is this: creativity and collaboration. And I don't consider this moment as the dark matter of teaching, but exactly the opposite. For me, that's the bright matter of teaching, where we can start building something together. Educational TED Talk star nowadays is Sir Ken Wilson, who says that every human being is creative by nature. And I like TED Talks, and I use them a lot with my students, so I chose another one which says that no significant learning can occur without significant relationship. And the third quote, because 3 is a nice number since Aristotle, a quote by Adrian Underhill, which I heard saying in an interview at the IoT conference in Liverpool last year, that just be yourself and make content. So, what I'm trying to do with my learners is create content with them, because it will enhance their learning, it will make them and give them independence, and it will make them self-confident. They can make something which is valuable for me as a teacher, because when they come into a language class, my last talk was about one-to-one teaching, and I gave this example that a one-to-one teaching situation is like sitting in a boat where the learner should be on the front seat and the teacher should be in the back seat. Because the person who is in the back seat is the one who directs the boat, who rows, who gives the direction, who makes sure that they don't fall in the water, but it's the learner in the front seat who has the impression that he's the one who's doing this. And through this thing in mind, you can help them be confident in their speech and in their use of English. Now, how to do this? What type of tools can we use to acquire these things? Tools nowadays grow like this beautiful tree down my street with magnolias, except that the pollination is made by internet, and they grow all these funny things. The prezzies, the present me's, the apps, the audio boosts, the sound clouds, and all sorts of different things. And we don't really know what to do with them. Shall we use them? Or shall we not? Do they engage the learner, or will they inhibit the learner in their progress? There are pros and cons. If you just spend 1 minute with the person next to you, could you discuss a little bit what is the power of engagement, and what are those discouraging factors that probably tells you not to use these tools because of this and because of that? Maybe you don't use them, maybe you use them, they don't work. So if those who are online, you have some ideas in the chat box. You can also type what you think about pros and cons of using technology in a classroom. And we can maybe discuss at the end of the talk. Any ideas that came up and you would like to share with us?
Age. I brought up age. The age of the learner. Because
And is it something that is in a sign of powerful engagement, or is it rather a discouraging factor?
It's a discouraging factor because not a lot, not all, fortunately, but a lot, many of my trainees are digital immigrants, and even digital is a refugee. Yeah, digital refugees. Digital politics, yeah, absolutely. So I have to accommodate.
So that's age. Any other?
Well, they can be quite easily engaged because I use all these apps with my students in the virtual classrooms we have. And I think that they've been using English more in these situations with these apps. So we use Wordle to create some vocabulary activities. It can be much fun. Funny, I don't think it's academic. It's fun to use these apps, even though we might not enjoy that as well.
Yeah. So it's good we have one pro and one con. What I think is good about these apps that they help us to create authentic content, personalized content. They are very engaging. They make the product look like something which came out from a publishing house. And another point that I would probably emphasize is that they are light on errors. And I will show you some tools that give a very nice way to give feedback and to correct errors without being aggressive with the learners. As a downside is what Bethany mentioned, age, that is one thing. But the other thing is that in professional training, very often people are just tired of looking at a screen. So when I show up at the business English class and my marketing manager says that the entire day he is sitting in front of his computer screen, he came here to do something else. So we will have to do something else because he doesn't want to answer emails in the evening, even if I'm an enthusiastic teacher and I will write him emails. That's one thing. The other thing is in companies, internet is not 100%. They always have a firewall. So we can't always rely on that. And there are phobics sometimes. Digital immigrants are digital phobics who just do not like technology. That's not their cup of tea. And it takes a lot of preparation time because you have to research, you have to learn how to use it yourself. So we can go back to the other type of tool sets that are something that you can pull out from the briefcase, put it on a table, and use it, which also have certain advantages and certain drawbacks. And what I think is good about these things, that they are personal, they are interactive, they include your personality and your learner's personality more than something which came from the internet. They are concrete, they are real, they are tangible. If your learner has a kinesthetic learning style, it will appeal more to him. You can find ready-made materials, they are safe, they do not rely on technology and internet. But at the same time, they are probably less professional looking. They might be heavy to carry. I brought you a few, but just samples because I took an airplane, so I couldn't take more than 20 kilograms. And of course, as everything else in what we do, needs preparation time. So which one do we use? Do we use the blossoming technology tree, or do we use these safe homemade desktop tools? I let you decide, and everybody decides, and it can vary from occasion to occasion. The way I use them, that I try to build up a certain process. And it's like building up a building, that I like to use techniques which help to build small blocks, vocabulary chunks, then tools that help to build bigger blocks, like short poetry, stories, and then tools that help to build an even larger box. And these are the different communication tasks, those professional needs that the learners need to prepare for a meeting, a presentation. And then at the end, I think that if they are all included and involved in a large framework, it will give a memorable experience for the learners. So let's look at a few tools, and I will invite you into those classes that I have. And living in France, I've learned that the secret of success and of a good meal are the good ingredients. So once you gather the right ingredients, your dish will be delicious. So sometimes we work on ingredients on a piece of paper to build up a family story. Little pieces of paper don't take anything. They can be a place. They can be a place for a content that comes from family, that comes from professional life, little bits that we can shuffle around and build up a whole story. This particular example is a family story where there are every single person in a family has a different story on a different piece of paper, and then depending on how we move these little pieces of paper, we can build up new stories. Well, the learner can build up his or her own stories. But there is another tool at this vocabulary level that I use very often, is the Quizlet. Now, the way I think we should use it is not that we make the sets for the learners. For those who don't know, Quizlet works like a flashcard. It has two sides. On one side, the word in English, for instance. On the other side, you can write the word in Hungarian, or you can put a picture there. And it has different functionalities to play, to learn, to practice spelling, to practice listening comprehension. The beautiful thing is that it's the learner who builds up his own personalized vocabulary. The way I do this with my learners is that I let them do, and they do it regularly. So by the end of a course, they leave the course with their own vocabulary set, which will bring back memories related to the situation that a certain word came up in our teaching context. So what happens is that the learner is autonomous. He creates his sets. He learns his words outside the classroom, even after the course, and it can be playful because there are game functions in the game. And what a teacher can do is just to give feedback, to be very light on errors, to correct mistakes at home. I never correct there. I let them write the way they want to write, and I reassure them that next time he looks at it, it will be perfect. So that's not an issue. So that's for Quizlet. And another technology miracle nowadays are the word counts. And very often word counts are used just like a decoration that I don't really like, because we don't really focus on words, and then we see big words and smaller words and even smaller words, large words. And if you look at this word count, can you tell me what situation is this word count focused on? Yeah. picked up words, job-related words, made his own vocabulary. I showed him how to make the word count. He made the word count. And next time in class, he practiced a job interview based on his words that he picked up from listening material or just by brainstorming ideas, how he will prepare for his job interview. Another word count which was created by a student is about weather, because I don't know about Hamburg. Yeah, in Hamburg it was even worse. Like last spring we had almost 3 weeks when every single day it was raining. So it was just very apropos to learn a few idioms about rain. There are so many in English. So the word count has a few words, but what I wanted to show you is something on an iPad and probably on an iPhone. You can find it as well, where you can have your word cards being moved in all directions. And again, the student writes his words on the cards and then plays around until he finds the target idioms.
What's the name of it?
And the name is note table. It's called note table. So from little bricks, little chunks, he arrives to saying that every cloud has a silver lining. And after this lesson, every single time he had a problem, I told him, but you know, every cloud has a silver lining. Another little device are these cubes that I only brought to assemble a few. They are called high cubes. They come from the Japanese literature, and a haiku is a poem which is based on 3 lines. The first line has 7, the second one has 5, and the last one has again 7 syllables. In the haikus, you have blocks that give you the theme, red one, and then you have blocks which are black that give you words. So a theme, for instance, my future, and it's funny because there is a my future vision 4. So if it happens with the case, then he plays around with the cubes for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and they always come up with a nice poem. Maybe it doesn't have much meaning, but it engages them into a creative activity. So if on that particular time we want to practice presentation skills where he has to include some story or he has to use his imagination, it's not this poem which is important, it's what's behind creating the poem which is important. Then I also play a little soft music and they just forget about all the pressure, the last meeting, the previous email, and they just settle down and they get into a sort of Zen state and they get tuned to English. They just combine the words, they play by themselves, and they create something that they are usually very happy about at the end, and they are surprised that, wow, I wrote this. On a higher level, you can use for the same purposes story writing and writing their own story, for which again there are cubes that Rubik's cubes that are very nice. Once I had a learner, she was dyslexic. She loved them. She really loved them. She loved my high cubes and she loved the Rubik's cubes. You have images, and from these images you write a story. There are 9 cubes in a box, which means that 3 for the beginning, 3 for the middle, and 3 for the end. They always come up with a story. and they are always engaged in this process of creating, doing something with the language. And again, if we want to be tacky, then there are many, many apps to create stories. I use this one, which is called Tell a Tale, which gives you the opening sentence, 3 images, and a closing sentence. So those who are more tuned into using technology devices, they love it, and again, they engage in a creative process. Now, these were all based on the smaller level, like vocabulary, idioms, poetry, short stories. And now we are getting to a little bit more serious domain, and we really have to prepare for a task, for a professional situation. I like using cards like this, which are plastified, so they look professional. And I can even wash them, wash off the germs. They were manipulated. And they give the form, and the learner will give the content by combining the elements, and at the end he will be able to present a process at his work. This was an accountant, so this is the process of accounting. And at the end, if we record it, it's a very good thing, but recording shouldn't stop at the moment of recording. What I usually do is that I edit it at home. There are many editing softwares. Audacity is one. I use the one which is on my computer, GarageBand, and I can just cut out those bits where we didn't know what to say, or we just like this. The French say that. And then when I present it next time, it is just in heaven. Is this me? Is this me speaking English? And this resonates a little bit with this vision that he will envision himself as a perfect language speaker. Of course, he knows it's artificial, but still, it gives him an image that this is how I should sound like, and I'm able to sound like this. So recording is beautiful, and I think that today we should always record. Record learners and record ourselves. The presentation ingredients from my first point can lead to another type of product, to my final point, which is on a website called Present Me. Works beautifully. Upload your slides and you record yourself. He's a student from a graduate school preparing a business pitch on a product launch. The time is short, limited, but for this type of little short presentations, it's perfect. They rehearse outside the classroom, they want to be perfect, they get dressed, you can see, but usually they like to look professional, and they are not hesitant to do it over and over again. So they can work on it for several sessions until it's perfect. Ideas on a poster, traditional way, but again, many boards where you can make surveys, polls, ideas. The one I use is the Padlet. You ask a question and each student gives a different answer, and then you discuss these answers in class. You flip your classroom, you extended your classroom, and you gave the chance to your student to create something which will stay there, not forever, but for a while. So what is very important, I think, is to always, from the beginning, think about a larger framework. What do you want to use these tools for? Just to make a word cloud? No. To do what with this word cloud? So what I phrased is a framework which is a real or a realistic situation which consists of a series of language activities, and they engage the student in a collaborative, creative process, and there is an outcome, a concrete product at the end. So I think having this in mind from the beginning will help us to get to the right destination. So the framework is basically a place for a content where you will put the content that you created with your learner. This can be real life, realistic context from your learner's life, like we use the word clouds to prepare a job interview. Poems are good to just engage into creative thinking. Stories are excellent for presentations, because in every good presentation you need to include a personal story, and this is usually something that people don't think about. Meetings, socializing are also good occasions for storytelling. Idioms, they are ecstatic when they can learn 2 or 3 idioms in English. They think that they are fluent. If they say that every cloud has a silver lining, then everybody around them will say, oh, how good is your English? Processes. We always work with processes, no matter what professional field we are in. Project management, production, marketing, whatsoever. Presentations. I don't have to emphasize how much presentation skills are important in professional training. Idea boards, brainstorming. We can use mind maps, we can draw mind maps, we can use online boards, but the idea is the same, is framework of a meeting, of a collaborative project that the learner has to work in. Now, this is on the learner side, framework. But I also want to include a framework which comes from me, because I also would like to be happy at the end of this journey that I take with my learners. So, blogs, beautiful platforms. You can publish basically everything that your learner created during the course on a blog. The word cloud, the recording, if you wrote a story, a poem, you can upload it on your blog. The blog, it doesn't have to be public. You can make a blog for one course, or you can make a blog that you give a password to. You can even have a blog where you have certain posts which have a password. So you give the password to your learner, and when I put up a recording, I put it on the blog, but it's not public. So it's only my learner who can listen to his voice, because of course he doesn't want to publicize himself. But on the other hand, it's secret when he can see that, oh, I'm on the internet and I speak English. It makes him happy. So this is a place of an educational content. It works like a personalized coursebook. Again, another hot topic, another trend in English today and in teaching circles today is, do we use the course book, do we not use the course book? I usually get a course book and I never use it. So a blog, I consider it as a live course book. You make it personalized for each course. It evolves the way you progress with your learner. And it gives an enormous value to the student's creativity. So if he knows that his poem will actually be published somewhere or appear somewhere as a part of a whole process, it's a completely different thing than just doing one activity that, okay, let's do an activity and we just forget about it afterwards. It gives meaning, and it's a tool to extend your class outside the meeting room and over the course. And what resonates with this is this quote from Johnson and Lakoff. They are philosophers, and I work a lot on metaphors, and this is a quite recent approach to metaphor, the book called Metaphors We Live By, and they machine itself. And I think it puts things in a different perspective. So, this is an example from a blog, and at the end I might try to get on the internet and show you the blog. If not, at the end there is the website that you can take a look at it just to see, but it's not something that I'm really sharing with people. I do it with the learners. But this was an example when the learner initiated something because she had to meet this particular person, Theodore Zellian, who's a British historian, and he's in Oxford. So we had to prepare for this interview in a serious way. So she picked some videos that she listened to, and the word count, this is only one, but actually on the website there are 4 or 5 word counts, are based on her notes that she took after each paragraph. And after each question, there is a word cloud. So based on the word cloud, she was able to rebuild the interview that she listened to. And after she listened to a French interview and had to make correspondence, she made a French word cloud as well, and then had to make comparisons. And all this appears in this published version. So the answer, if we use a technology tree or these desk tools, I think we all have to agree that they are both useful, and we can't just forget about this type of cards and get lost in a maze of the internet, and the other way around. If we add some internet-based tools, it will help a lot to make classes more interactive, and especially to extend it and to give something lasting after the meeting. But we have to keep in mind that technology is one possible device. The source has to be the learner and the teacher. And the last thing that I want to focus on is that the content emerges through creativity and collaboration. And we do not give the content, we create the content together. And if you remember the 2 circles at the beginning, we come back to the same shape, and I think that these 2 things are very important so that they merge. The teacher's engagement and the learner's engagement. And if they merge, then we will find and will create a positive learning experience. And the talk we listened to this morning by Zoltan talked about this positive learning experience as associated with the actual self. In his motivation triangle, which is based on the ideal self, the ought to self, and the actual self. And the actual self of the learner is this language learning experience that he builds up with us during the course. And if he has this positive experience, I think he will come out from those woods and will arrive here and will be able to navigate by himself and navigate his boat on the Atlantic Ocean, having achieved personal success, personal benefits, transferable skills, and, of course, in a limited framework, being a successful communicator by being independent and self-confident in what he or she is doing. And if we have a thank you at the end of this journey, then I think that our investment of time, because these techniques, they do take a lot of time. Find the technology tools, learn them how to work, introduce them, put them on a blog. It's our free time. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. These are the references that were mentioned in the slides. And This is me in Grenoble. TheBestEnglish.com is the blog that I was talking about. It's a personal thing, so you won't be amazed by the quality of the posts, because it's targeted to the learners, and very often materials are made by the learners, and it's a tool for them. So thank you very much for listening to these ideas today. And if you have any questions, people who are online in the chat, then maybe we have a few minutes to answer.
We have a few comments, but no questions.
No questions. Anyway, thank you very much for being with me today, and I wish you continuation for this conference, which is a fabulous conference here. So I congratulate the whole organizing team of IoT for Hungary and the technical staff, especially. I think worth applause.